Hello, everyone. Now, I know that this chapter so far has been a little tricky, especially the last lesson with the factoring, but just keep in mind what we're looking for. This whole chapter is about finding the zeros of a quadratic. So if we were to put it into y equals, I know you've seen this many times this week so far, and we graphed a parabola that looks something like that. Our zeros, let's say, would maybe be 2 and 7. Okay, well, we can find those two zeros algebraically. We've talked about solving using inverse operations, where you add and subtract from both sides, multiply, divide, take the square root. We talked about factoring in the last lesson, which I know is very tricky and complicated sometimes. I personally like the quadratic formula, even though it looks pretty scary. I like this the best for the main reason of it works every single time. The other nice thing, you might be saying, well, how am I going to remember this formula? Guess what? You don't have to. You will see this come up in algebra and algebra 2, and it's always given to you on the formula sheet. You'll never have to memorize it. So let's talk about it. So the first thing that you have to do is you need to get everything to one side. You have to set it equal to 0. All right? The number in front of your x squared is a, the number in front of your x is b, and then the constant, which is also your y-intercept, is your c. Now, if you look at the equation, it's x equals, because if I was looking for these two zeros, they'd be x equals 2 and x equals 7. Well, if I use the formula, I'm going to get that same thing. And you'll notice the square root. We've been working with square roots. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to get the equation, set it equal to 0. You're going to tell me what a, b, and c are. Again, those come right from here. And then you're going to substitute those values into the formula. So instead of negative b equals, maybe it'll be, negative 2 equals or 4 equals. And then what you're going to do, and this is important, after you write it down, you're going to type into the calculator just what's under the square root. No square root sign, just that number. And then if we get a perfect square, we'll do one thing. If we don't, we'll do another, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. So let's just get into a couple examples and get started. So I'm going to write the formula down here so I have it in front of me. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, and then the whole thing is divided by 2 times a. All right, so let's first check. Is it set equal to 0? Yes, so we're good to start. And if it's easier, do this on a sheet of paper. I cannot imagine trying to write on your Chromebooks with these. So do it on a sheet of paper and take a picture. It's a lot easier. All right, so we need to first state what a, b, and c are. A would be 1, b would be negative 6, and c would be positive 8. So we're going to take those values and we're going to plug them in to that equation. Okay, so let's start. X equals, instead of negative b, it's going to be negative 6, which ends up being positive 6, but we'll deal with that in a minute because b is already negative, plus or minus the square root of b squared. B is negative 6, parentheses around your negatives, squared, and then minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 8. And then the whole thing's over 2 times a, 2 times 1. Now you might be saying that looks super confusing. It's not. All right, just give it a minute. We'll try a couple of these together. It won't be bad. All right, so this first thing, and you can kind of do this right from the get-go if you want. If I see it's negative b and b is already negative, it's going to become a positive. So negative 6 is 6 We're going to leave the plus or minus. We're going to bring a square root over, and 2 times 1 in the denominator is 2. Now, this is important. The only thing we're going to do, one, you need to make sure that the negative's in parentheses. If not, it's going to give you the wrong answer. We're just going to type that into our calculator. All right, so we have negative, oops, I forgot my parentheses already. Because look at, if I just type negative 6 squared, it says negative 36. No, negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. And if you notice, the parentheses around the negative sign on the negative button, that could be a hint for you to put your negative number in parentheses. All right, so we have negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 8. I'm typing exactly what I see here. 4. Well, that looks a little bit easier to deal with, doesn't it? Is 4 a perfect square? Yeah, square root of 4 is 2. So let's see what our steps are. If you get a perfect square, you're going to split it into a plus and a minus and simplify to get 2 integers. All right, so the square root of 4 is 2. So one of my zeros is going to be x equals 6 plus 2 divided by 2. 6 plus 2 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. There's one of your zeros. The other zero is going to be, you're going to follow that same path, 6 minus 2. So x equals 6 minus 2 over 2. 6 minus 2 is 4, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So there's our 2 zeros. And you know what? If you were to put it into the calculator right from the beginning to look at your graph, we know how to find zeros by looking at the graph. They're also called solutions. X squared minus 6x plus 8. Do you notice how it says equals 0? You don't put that in. That's what you're looking for. You want to see where it equals 0. So we'll go to the graph. 2 and 4 is where it hits 0. Or you could go to the table. 2 makes it 0 and 4 makes it 0. Okay, so don't forget that. They all tie together. 2 and 4. Same thing. You could have factored it as well. But again, factoring I know can be a little tricky. I know that this seemed really complicated too, but it's only the first example. You'll see once we do more of these, it'll get easier and easier. All right, let's do one more on this video and then I'll move to the next one. Okay, so it already says equals 0. So A equals negative 3, B equals 8, and C equals negative 4. Again, those come right from your x squared, your x, and your constant. Negative 3 is your A, 8 is your B, and negative 4. So again, I'm going to write my formula up here. X equals negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C, all divided by 2A. Do you have to memorize this? No, it is given to you. All you literally have to do is copy it down. So let's copy it down, but now instead of using A, B, and C, we'll use our values. So instead of negative B, we're going to have negative 8. Keep your plus or minus. Nice big square root. B squared, 8 squared minus 4 times, instead of A, we're going to have negative 3. Instead of times C, we're going to have times negative 4. And again, yeah, it looks a little scary right now, but it works every time, and the calculator is going to help you out. All right, in the bottom, we have 2 times A, so it would be 2 times negative 3. All right, so now let's simplify. I'm going to bring that negative 8 down. My plus or minus, I'll make a smaller square root. And in the denominator, we have 2 times negative 3, which is negative 6. So again, we're going to take just what's underneath the square root. We're not going to put the square root into our calculator. We need to check and see if it's a perfect square or not. and what that value is. If you try to hit clear, nothing happens. If you notice right here next to second, it says quit, hit second mode, get you right back here. Okay, so 8 squared minus 4 times negative 3 times negative 4. Again, it looks exactly like this in my calculator. 16. Oh, that's nice. That's a perfect square. All right, so let's finish it up. So the square root of 16 is 4, not 8. And remember, if you're not sure what it is, your calculator knows second x squared 16. 4. Okay, so we're going to split it up. One of our roots is going to be negative 8 plus 4 over negative 6. The other one's going to be negative 8 minus 4 over negative 6. So we have negative 8 plus 4. And then the other one's going to be negative 8 minus 4. And then we'll just evaluate each one. Okay, so negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4 over negative 6. Let the calculator simplify for us. Alpha y equals, enter to get your fraction. Or just negative 4 divided by negative 6. Oops. Just use your down arrow. And you type the negatives right in, and it takes care of it, okay? It tells you it's positive and it simplifies your fraction. And that's a 0 that we wouldn't have seen on the graph. All right, negative 8 minus 4 is negative 12 over negative 6. And if you wanted, honestly, you could type that whole thing in as it was. So I could just do negative 8 minus 4 over negative 6, 2. Right? Negative 12 divided by negative 6, 2. There's your answer. All right. So I'm going to stop there with this video. In the next video, we'll go through the rest of these. And we'll look at what happens, if there's things that are not on that side. All right. Or if we're missing a term. Or if we don't get a perfect square. Okay, so we are going to practice with this for a few days. And that's it for the unit. So we're just going to finish those up, maybe throw a couple word problems in, and we're set. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Stop by the math lab if you have any questions or you're struggling. Have a good day.